I want to call this meeting to order. This is a special Wednesday, December 15, 2021 meeting of the Personnel Administration Committee for the Monroe County Council. I want to note we have one item of substance on this agenda. That is item number 2, a request from the Health Department. Hello, Commissioner Hawk. And I will start off by just calling roll to recognize the counselors that we have here as members of PAC. First off, Commissioner Hawk.
Present.
And Commissioner Iverson.
Present.
Quorum is well established. Having called this to order, I'm going to move quickly now into item number 2. This is a request from the Health Department. It's a request to create a new position, school liaison, 35 hours. And I'm going to recognize Ms. Penny Cottle, our Health Department Administrator, to talk to us about this request.
Thank you very much for having this special meeting. I appreciate it very much. This is in response to long awaited, and I say long, a couple months. This fall, we were told that these funds would be coming. They are preparedness funds for emergency response. They're COVID-related funds, and they're funds to help our workforce, but to more importantly, help our schools in things around COVID. So it can be used
Right now, and I can't hear.
Little audio cutting out, Penny.
Mm-hmm.
You were faint for a second.
Right. It would be nice if we could have some of this in writing, because I'm trying to take notes and I don't take shorthand so well anymore.
And we do have the item in the packet, including the request and a description.
I listened to it again this morning at the commissioners' meeting, so I ought to have memorized.
It is cooperative agreement for emergency response. Public health crisis response is the federal ID name for this, but it is related to schools and COVID. It is funding that the state received that is coming to local health departments. I mentioned last night and to the commissioners, there are some counties that are not taking these funds. We felt it was very important to take them and to help support our schools and get some additional funding to them in their response as they have dealt with contact tracing, not just how do we set up and do school during this pandemic, but just all of the contact tracing and things that they are doing it's just a huge undertaking, and we certainly in the health department understand it firsthand in relation to those kinds of things. So we want to be a good steward and help them as much as we can. This is a deliverable grant. The commissioners just heard this morning. Again, they approved it and will ratify it in January. We set up the appropriation, and then we'll come to you at your work session with exact account lines for that as well. But what we have to do to get these funds, our first deliverable is to hire school liaison and sign the contract. And so in order to do that, we need job description and to be able to do this process very quickly. So I did my best at filling out that questionnaire so that it can go to WIS and we can get a job description put together. We did do some research and pull 3 different sample kind of job descriptions from other places that seemed like they might be similar. And I included one that I thought that I kind of used as a guide that I thought was more similar to what we were looking for. Because this is kind of new, it was difficult to think in terms of exactly what they will do. And we do want to have some flexibility in there for them to pivot and do what we need them to do. We want to use a bulk of these funds for the school liaison. We want to use some perhaps for testing to ensure schools have testing abilities, but we really want to get the bulk of these funds to the schools.
Thank you, Ms. Cottle. I'm going to open this up to questions from PAC members, and I do have one of my own once the other 2 members have a chance.
Let me ask if I can go, Mr. Decker.
Please, please.
How did you the questionnaire is fairly new to us. I mean, did it take you a long time to do? Was it pretty strenuous, or I mean, is there anything that we can be doing to make this so that? Well, actually, here I'll let you answer the question, then I'll follow.
I don't like the questionnaire. I don't find it easy to complete. Now that could be because that's not my skill set. And probably the hardest thing for me, it's one thing to say these are the kinds of tasks that this person will do, especially when it's new. It's very difficult to say, how much time is this going to take? Is this a first priority? I mean, I can say these are the priorities, but they're the priorities as they are today. They may not be the priorities, once we get into this. So for me, the biggest thing are those details about, how many times will this be a weekly or a daily or a monthly thing? I don't know. All of it's daily, right? Unless you don't need to do it today. So I do find it frustrating. I've done this form before and I never feel like I'm very good at it. Now, maybe that's a plus, but there's no training on how to do the form. So that might be my suggestion, that if this is a form that we're going to use, that somebody kind of walks us through, how do we make those determinations? I would find that personally very helpful. I can read the instructions, but I just don't feel like I'm always describing things in the best way that I should be.
Yeah. Well, and for those of you watching at home, this is a 12-page questionnaire that our department heads need to fill out on top of everything else. So, but Penny, I did like that you found comparable job descriptions to add to this. That was helpful to see too.
It's good feedback for us, Ms. Cottle. Go ahead, Counselor Hawk.
Yes, it just seems, especially on this, because this is not a permanent position. This is something that we are just going to be working our way through. We, as in you, and the new person that's going to be hired to do this. I understand you have a part-time person on board now that you think could move forward to this. And I would want to make certain that that person understood this funding is not going to be around forever. So that those dollars will not be available for that position. But I'm hoping that you can leave it just as broad and open as possible so that you can react as quickly as possible, because that's what we need. We need to make sure we're providing what is really needed. And since we don't really know right now, that's going to be ongoing and changing quickly. And I just hope that you're going to be able to make that clear and get this back. And time is of the essence. We just have to move forward and get something going quickly. So to whatever extent we can be helpful, I would sure like to do that.
Thank you. I agree with everything you just said. 100%.
I don't know if I can stand that. Does that mean you're going to come run the sweeper for me and clean my house? Yay.
I thank you, Counselor Hawk. And I wanted to ask a question just a second to kind of have you go back through something that you talked about last night. But I do want to point out, again, dollars coming into this county to support this position. This is absolutely huge. And the fact that you're going for it and other counties did not, that is what it is. Right now we're thinking about Monroe County, but huge that these things come here. And I know that's a lot of added burden, including this form, which you have given us. You've given us some good feedback as we think about it, figure it all out on a day-to-day basis. The question I had for you is, you talked a little bit about this last night, but I think it's always helpful to I'd love to hear it again. This position theoretically will coordinate with all school systems. And when we say all, we mean ALL, like every public, private, otherwise. Am I saying that correctly?
Yes, you are. Yes. And I mentioned this last night, that oftentimes people, And when I deal, for instance, with students or people new to the community and they hear Monroe County School Corporation, they think that that is our only school corporation, and it is our largest school corporation. They're a great partner, but we have Richland Bean Blossom that is another large school corporation. And then we have private, parochial, charter schools. I think it's about a dozen school systems that we have in our community. So we are talking about working with and serving all of them. So helping them with this assessment, the assessment that they will have to do, I think it's pretty simple. So I'm glad about that. But we want to make sure that if they are having an outbreak in a school related to their building and they need some additional help with contact tracing, that we have staff ready. And we have helped them. Our nurses help them. Our nurses do that. We've also sent some other staff to help schools at various times. But the schools are doing the brunt of this, and it can be an enormous thing. Now, I hope that as we get more people vaccinated, that, you know, things will calm down and they won't need to be doing as much contact tracing. And to Commissioner Hawk's point, then we need to pivot. If they don't need that kind of help, what other help do they need? And so we will be working with all of the schools to ensure that. And we are working I've reached out to the chamber and they are willing to help us work out a formula, a system for dividing those funds in an equitable manner.
Thank you very much. Councilor Hawk.
Yeah, could you tell me, as far as tracking the dollars, because that's what the council does, is track the dollars. Do you have a system set up to make sure that we're all dollars are being spent according to the grant? And is this grant one of those that, oh, if you spend it in the wrong way, we have to pay it back, like some of the other grants we've had?
Certainly, this is a deliverable based grant. So our funding will be, we do X and we get X amount of money, and we do Y and we get X amount of money. And it has to be spent on COVID. So we will treat the schools, we'll have to have some MOUs with the schools so that we can get that money to them. But that's part of what this liaison will be doing as well, is they've done the assessment. Yeah. They're, you know, and they'll be looking and reconciling cases. So we have public health nurses now who are trying to reconcile those school cases, but this position will help them. So it will alleviate that burden so that we know that they're reporting correctly. We know that they're following isolation, quarantine procedures correctly, and we can monitor that more. So okay. Yes, this position will help with that.
And that was the reason for my question, was not that it's a fiscal question, because that will be something the council would look at, but that it's covered in this job description if they are supposed to be the ones tracking it. Thank you.
One item of note I just want to add to all this is I think this often gets lost in the shuffle, and I say this as just an observing parent walking around our schools, is, you know, as I approach that elementary school in the mornings, I see the principal, vice principal out directing traffic. Later in the day, I'm going to see the principal, vice principal emailing me about COVID protocols. I'm hearing from the teachers. Teachers are interacting electronically, pandemically, and every other lead that they didn't have when I was back at Grandview Elementary in the early 80s. Point being, this is anything this county can do to support that process in a pandemic, particularly with state money coming in to benefit us. That is a huge thing. And it's a testament to folks like our administrator here to bring that in. I'm going to sing that hymn as long as I can. And I go walk in that school as a taxpayer and an elected official, reassured by all of that. That puts a lot of pressure on those teachers, that vice principal, the principal, and Ms. Cottle. But I appreciate you, and I want to make note of that wherever I can. Yeah, I think Councilor Iverson, and then Councilor Hawk after that.
In the hand.
Yeah.
Those hands.
Penny, I'm trying to get a sense of how busy this person could potentially be. Have you heard from any of your public health colleagues across the state? Have you read any studies about what the Omicron variant is doing to school-age populations, whether it's in South Africa or Europe? I haven't, and so I'm wondering to know if you've come across anything.
I have not, to be honest, and certainly we're waiting for it to arrive here. And it probably already is. We just haven't isolated it. That would be my guess. But I have not heard that anything in relation. So far it seems to be more contagious, so it's easier to spread. I think the verdict is still out on how the severity of illness is. So certainly something that we want to watch. Again, vaccines, getting everybody vaccinated, every student, faculty, staff that's eligible, getting them fully vaccinated, and when appropriate, getting their booster dose will be important and will make a difference, I think, in keeping our students and our teachers and faculty and staff in the school where they can learn the best.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you.
Councillor Hawk.
Yes. I know that once again, I'm just coming from my daughter's perspective, and she's in a totally different state as a teacher. But I know one of the things that they're facing is that those students cannot learn without that laptop, some kind of device to work at home. And many times they are in a home situation where they're not in control of what they take home. And then those devices are missing. Can this in any way assist those children who really need to be able to get to that device so they can participate if it's no longer in-person teaching?
Yeah, if it is COVID related, yes. Now I know from talking with, I think most all the schools, I can't say for all of them, that I know NCC has talked about one-on-one. So each student has iPad or what have you. But certainly if they had students that needed that and needed a device and didn't have it, and they needed it and they can connect that to COVID, that to me would be a very reasonable, and as long as this is connected to COVID, then, and our response to that, then it would be acceptable. So we'll want to know what the schools need and how they plan to use the funds and that kind of thing. And you bring up a great point, not that this will solve that, but broadband and internet access has been a real issue. And there's been lots of special places kind of set up where people can go, because we have people in our community that just don't have access to high-speed internet. And, it may be hard to believe, but there are people still using dial-up, and that can be very difficult to get things done. And so, hopefully that is something that will improve. If you have to look at a positive out of the pandemic, I think it's raised even more awareness to that need in our communities.
Councillor Hawk.
Yes, well, the reason why I mentioned that, and we heard a bit about this with the new positions in the public defender's office. We know that children are not always in a family home. They are sometimes moved to foster parents, then to grandparents, then over to an aunt and uncle or the neighbor's house or wherever. And in the meantime, what they need to survive and be able to participate in schooling might not be coming with them. So I would hope that we as a team, county team, in some way, make sure that we support those little ones that cannot do it for themselves. So, and this might be something that we could add and work together with that new people that will be coming on board in the public defender's office that's working with those young folks. I mean, I don't know, just if there's any way we can work together.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Well, we've had a good hearty discussion. Do I have a wish or a motion from the members of this committee?
Go ahead.
You cannot.
Well, I'm sorry, I don't have the forms in front of me. You go
Well,
ahead.
I have the forms in front of me. I just clarifying question at this point. Is this body then making a motion to then refer this to the council with a positive recommendation period?
So go to WIS first.
So this will go to WIS. WIS will come back with a form. We'll take a look at it. That goes on to council.
You want me to make the motion? I'm sorry, Peter. I didn't mean to throw you in.
Yeah, Commissioner Hawk, I think that would be helpful at this point.
Okay, I think that we move forward with sending this job description request to WIS to have them return it to us ASAP, and then we'll go from there.
Do we have a second?
Oh.
And a second on the floor. Awesome. I love this teamwork, Pac. Do we have any further discussion on the motion and the second on this item? Seeing none, we'll go to a roll call vote.
Councilor Deckard?
Yes.
Councilor Iverson?
Yes.
Councilor Hawk?
Yes.
Motion passed unanimously.
Thank you all very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Penny,
Oh.
I would ask that you give me a call so that we can go through the form so we can figure out what you're having a problem with.
12 pages.
That's what they
12 days of
require.
Christmas.
Yeah, well, that's what WIS requires so that they can make sure they have a thorough job description for, because it is brand new, so.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you very much. We're going to go really quickly. I'm going to make a quick comment here, a PAC member comment. I think I'm going to probably say this again at the council meeting next week. As I've said in PAC and council and all these positions I've watched for a considerable amount of time as we have assisted the community in all sorts of ways in getting through this pandemic. We are going through, we're figuring out where Wi-Fi is at. We're figuring out equipment to reach people. We figured out ways to put masks on faces and all sorts of different things. And it's a lot of different efforts by teachers, parents, community members, et cetera. But the point that I would make for anyone watching out there is that there are things that everybody can do to benefit their neighbor. And one of the things I would urge every person to think about is those things that they can do regarding vaccines and boosters. We are so dependent on each other, no matter what our politics are, national, state, otherwise local. We are absolutely dependent on each other. We're a community of neighbors. And I remember when I was a little boy, my mother would take me to Dr. Schaefer over on First Street, and I would fight her about having to get a shot and all the immunizations and things. And she would say, you just got to do this because this is going to make you better. And I'd rather you have a sharp, whatever in the buttocks, pain, arm, you name it, and get better than to have the risk. And I think we've reached that point where we've got to get a little bit back to that. I know folks struggle with this mightily, but my gosh, look at your neighbors and take care of them. And that's this one PAC member's comments. I'm probably going to say this again at council next week, but I think it takes more people like me saying those kinds of words. I cannot urge that enough. We are friends, neighbors, and it's a big, small town. And so with that, any other PAC member comments you want to add in?
I would simply add to your comments, Mr. Deckard, if you care to add to the comments that you're going to make next Tuesday, is today they were reading out the amount of money that has been allocated out of the ARPA funds to Monroe County employees who showed proof of their vaccination, and it is staggering. Monroe County employees are getting vaccinated. And so we're hearing you, Mr. Deckard, and we're getting those vaccinations in our arms, we're getting those shots. So it's good news.
Thank you very much. Councilor Hawk.
Right. I think I heard it was over for something like 439 employees have turned in their documentation to be able to, of course, they're anxious to receive the dollars if they've had that vaccination. But as others around them and their workforce around them, if they see them receiving the dollars and if they have not received the vaccination, that may just encourage them to rush out and get that done. But at any rate, I was grateful to see that many of our employees have already, because that just means the spread will not be happening in Monroe County government perhaps as quickly. At least that is my hope. So we have to not rely on the fact that our record looks like it's better than some counties because our death rates are lower or something. That's or because what we're seeing is it's tied to the total population, and we have a lot younger population in our county percentage wise than some of the other smaller counties around us. So we should not get complacent and think, well, we're safer here. We should always recognize that if it's out there and we expose ourselves to it and we're not protected, then we can expect that to visit our homes. So, yes, I'm not sure that that's what we're supposed to be talking about at PAC, but since you started it, Mr. President.
Well, I did, and I don't know if I'm sentimental or not, but I will make this final comment and I'll get us out of here. I know. Maybe it's because it's an earlier meeting. Maybe I'm feeling sentimental, but I will say this. Look, we are all friends and neighbors. Councilor Hawk and I don't always vote together, but a good portion of what we talk about when we're not in meetings is actually about gardening and freezes coming on and fun things that we love about this county. Councilor Iverson and I, we joke about things all the time. That's at the end of the day. We, look, labels, ideas, notions, they are strong things, but we are neighbors looking after each other. So I think I might say something like that because good gosh, we got to do something. So with that, I want to thank you all. This is theoretically the last PAC of the year, but I'm going to put an asterisk on that because Michelle will tell me later whether or not that's true. And I want to thank everyone for helping us out. Councilor Hawk.
It better be the last one.
As far as I know, it's the last one.
Asterisk.
I'm hiding from everybody.
With that, thanks to the CATS members that are covering this and not snickering too hard at all the things we talk about. This meeting is adjourned, friends.
Holidays.